Hi, my name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED, and this is Q5 Ham Radio. Today I'm joined by a remarkable group of young operators led by mentor Gregg Marco W6IZT, reflecting on the PJ6Y DXpedition to Saba Island. It was a technically ambitious operation, but more importantly, it served as a hands-on investment in the future of amateur radio. With first-time DXpeditioners, expanded remote participation for young AMs, and focused participation guided by veteran operators, this effort built real-world skills and helped shape the next generation of DXpedition leaders. Q5 is proudly supported by ICOM, building radios that inspire operators to push the boundaries of what's possible. Welcome to Q5, team. So, Greg, why don't you kick it off with where the team ended up at the end of the contest? What was the final score, QSO total, multipliers?
We ended up with about 8,700 Qs, total score of 13.3 million. We did real well on all bands. Our total mults were 474, and we're really pleased with the results we attained because our setup here is very minimal. We had a hex beam, a tribander, an inverted L, and a sloper. And all of this was set up after our arrival here on Saba. We arrived, it'll be 2 weeks ago, this upcoming Wednesday. And in total, we've made just over 55,000 Qs. That's
fantastic. And I've got to say, you sounded great in Northern Maine. I just put a partial effort into the contest. I had a family event I had to go to, but PJ6Y sounded fantastic in Northern Maine. I think you have N1DE in the log a couple times, so thank you for that. Before we get too far into this, I'd love for someone to introduce the team that we're looking at. When I saw the team photo, it looked like there might be 15 people on site, but Greg, could you do that? Could you have the team introduce themselves?
Absolutely. So we'll start off over here with Ewan.
Hi, I'm Ewan, November 7, Echo Whiskey November, from Woodinville, Washington.
Hi, I'm Maddie, Oscar Margate Alpha Tango Echo, and I'm from city of Košice in Slovakia.
Hi, my name is Susan, Papa Delta 3 Sierra Zulu November from the Netherlands.
Hi, my name is Aaron, KC1 SJR from Rhode Island, USA.
Hi, my name is George, call sign Yankee Oscar 9 Lima India Golf, and I'm from Romania.
Hi, I'm Amelia, Yankee Oscar 8 Yankee Lima from Bucharest, Romania.
Vincent, Papa Charlie 2 Yankee from the Netherlands. My name is Dominic, Delta Lima 1 Delta Juliet Hotel from Germany.
Jeff, November Mike 1 Yankee from Connecticut, USA.
Hi, Connor, Kilo Delta 9 Lima Sierra Victor, St. Louis, Missouri.
Robin, W7YD, I'm also from New Zealand, from Woodinville, Washington.
I'm Glenn, W0GJ from Iowa in the States.
And I'm Greg, W6IZT from Morganton, Georgia.
Well, thank you for doing that. And you also have a remote crew that aren't on camera, correct?
That is correct. We have about 30 to 35 remote operators. The ribs are located at a location about a mile and a half from here at a communications facility. So it's pretty much a separate standalone operation from there. We coordinate using the capabilities of N1MM, but the on-island operation and the off-island operation are pretty much separate from one another.
So for the contest that we just finished, was it just the people on site or also the remote operators?
It was just the on-island team. The remote operators operated FT8 while we were in the contest.
So let's get into the contest. So the build-up on Friday, did everything start off okay? Was everything working properly?
Everything was working properly. In fact, I don't think we had any real issues to speak of. Murphy could have raised his head in a big way. It didn't happen. We had very little interstation interference, just a couple of cases that were not disruptive at all. So all in all, things worked extremely well, and we're very pleased with the opportunity, the experience, and the friendships that we have all made this past 2 weeks.
Well, I love the fact that you have an international team there. I'm just curious what the contesting background was for most of the youth. Was this the first contest for many of you, or have some of you contested before?
I think that for three of the 9 young ops, this was their first contest. And most of the other ops have some contesting experience. As you mentioned, it's a multinational team. We have representatives from 5 countries, and 3 of the on-island team members advanced from the off-island team on Rotuma.
And how did you handle the scheduling?
We delegate as much of the work as possible to the youth. It helps them learn more about the experience. And Vincent PC2Y had volunteered to come up. You never volunteer, Vincent. Volunteered to come up with the schedule. He came up with a great schedule where we had 4 teams, but the schedule was structured in such a way that the teams within their operating time slots had the ability to schedule their team members as they saw fit.
So what did that look like in the final analysis? And anybody can answer this question, but when those schedules were finalized, were people on for a couple hours at a time or less or more?
Teams were on for 4 or 6 hour time slots. We had 2 stations. We had 4 to 5 members on each team, typically 4, and the team members within a given team set up their own schedule within the 4 to 6 hour time slot.
And what about you old operators in the photo right now? Were you operating at all, or did you just monitor?
I operated.
Our location was about where we stayed and slept was about 15 minutes from the operating center. So we had to have a couple cars and incorporate some shuttle time into our schedule too. So that complicated things a little bit, but in the end it all worked out really well, thanks to Vincent.
So what kind of surprises did you encounter, if any?
Gosh, I mean, a day and a night we had extreme weather. We had a lot of lightning one night. There really weren't any surprises, so to speak. Things went very smoothly. I'm really happy about that. But I'm confident that any challenges that we were faced with, we would have been able to address.
And how were the pileups?
The pileups were massive. It was really a lot of fun. We operated obviously from 160 through 10. Most of our time was spent on 10 and 15. 10 meters was the money bands. We made about 3,500 Qs on 10. And to put that in perspective, that was about twice what we made on 20. And we made 1,500 Qs on 20. And we made about 3 or 4 times as many Qs on 20 as we did on 40. And the same thing kind of, carried on through 80 and 160. 160 was challenging. We made about 50 or 60 Qs, I think 15 multipliers on 160. But, all in all, in a sideband contest, the peak of the sunspot cycle, that's about as good as it gets.
So, Greg, I know after I went down to St. Lucia to J62K, one of the fun things about being part of a multi-op is the conversation after the contest is over, and you start comparing notes and thinking about what you might do differently next time, the things you learned. Could you summarize for me some of the things that came up from the operators?
We really, after the contest, we had a team dinner. We were all pretty tired, and most of the team headed back to where they were staying. I was fortunate to stay here at the site. But let me ask around, what would you do differently? Start with Connor.
It was a lot of fun. No change. Nothing really major that was impact from operating. Antennas were placed well. Low noise floor. A lot of the preparation was done prior to the contest with us operating here for a substantial amount of time. Everybody understanding how propagation operates here. So a lot of preparation leading up to the contest helped minimize things we would have changed after the contest.
Dominic, you want to add anything to that?
No, I would say most of this. I think, in my opinion, we made it as good it was possible. So no change in my opinion.
I would say, Kevin, the results of our experience here were more based upon the operators than the infrastructure. I mean, we only had 500 watt amplifiers. We had marginal antennas, but these young hams really stepped up. They made good rate. Even the young hams that hadn't participated in the contest before they took advantage of the time before the contest to really hone their skills. And when the time the contest came around, they were ready for the pilots.
And Greg, if you would, could you go down through the equipment list again? What did you use for radios and amps?
Okay, so the radios were Elecaf K3s. The amps were KPA 500s. Our antennas for 20 through 10, one is a Cushcraft A3 that we ended up rebuilding before the contest because it had a little bit of an issue. The other is a flat portable hex beam from G3TXQ hex beams in the UK. We had an inverted L that was pretty much resonant on 160. We used that on 80 as well. And we needed another antenna, and we ended up throwing up a sloper that went from our operating location down the mountain about 150 feet. And we tuned that with a remote antenna tuner at the top of the antenna, which was kind of an experiment. We didn't know how it was going to work. It didn't quite perform as well as the inverted L, but all things considered, it did very well, especially on 40 meters.
I don't think most people realize the geology of Saba. This is a mountain, volcanic mountain that sticks out of the ocean, and the roads are very steep, and we're sitting about 2,000 feet above the sea right where we are now.
And were you guys watching the contest online scoreboard while you were operating?
Yes, we were. And it was really motivational. It helped keep us focused, and it fueled our energy level. Coming into Sunday morning, it was a pretty close race between us and a few other stations, and we really hustled, and we were able to outleg the stations that we were neck and neck with early Sunday morning, and we were about 1 million points ahead of our closest competitor by the end of the contest.
And who are those other stations that you were paying attention to, Greg?
There was a KL5 in Alaska that we were neck and neck with, YT3 in Europe, and there was a German station, a German club station that we were essentially tied with on Sunday morning, and we ended up maybe 1.5 million points ahead of them at the end of the contest.
Yeah, Delta Papa 7 Delta.
Delta Papa 7 Delta, I believe is the call sign.
And did you have any time at all to watch any of the other races in the single op category, for example?
No, we were focused on the multi-2. That was our battleground. I looked at some of the other scores just to kind of get a feel for it, but we really didn't look at any other battles. In hindsight, that would have been a lot of fun to watch, but I was very much focused on the folks that we were trying to compete with directly in the multi-2 category.
Totally understandable. For me, I was as I was saying, it was a family event and traveling, so I was watching the scoreboard in a number of different races all weekend long, and it certainly looked like a lot of fun, a lot of things going on, and a lot of great categories. Anything else to add, Greg, before we wrap up?
I think everybody had a great time. As you know, this started off with a DXpedition to Rotuma, and it's now taken on more of a project with a life cycle. I'm going to get back. I've already got some thoughts about where we're going to go next year. I'm hopeful that some of the first-time DXpeditioners will join us on the next trip as experienced DXpeditioners, part of the leadership of that team. And I fully intend to keep this process moving forward as long as I possibly can. And also I want to thank our sponsors, DX Foundation, Indexa, CDXC, European DX Foundation, and a multitude of clubs. I think we had a total of 40 or 45 clubs and organizations, and probably about 220 to 225 individual contributors who, without their support, their encouragement, this project would not have been possible. And also DX Engineering as well. Tim and the team there, they're amazing. They provided us with a lot of supplies, and without that, these are not inexpensive trips. And without the support we're receiving, we wouldn't be here with you today.
I can say that from when I first arrived, it's like the young operators had, I'll say, mic fright. They were a little bit slow and cautious, and boy, they matured quickly over the few days, and they really played out well in the contest. I'm very impressed how things matured in 10 days. Very impressed.
Well, I really appreciate you all joining me today. I know you're probably very tired. Looking forward to seeing what the next DXpedition is and hopefully that's going to also intersect with a contest. Thank you for joining me today.
You're very welcome, Kevin. Thank you for having us.
My name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED, and this has been Q5 Ham Radio with the PJ6Y crew on Saba Island. You will find them on 3830 scores, and I think you'll be duly impressed also. 73.
73.
73. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.